Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Forbes.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Madam Secretary, General, Admiral, thank you so much for your service to our country. Thank you for being here today. We've had a couple of milestones in the last few weeks. One, the Japanese the number of planes they've had to scramble against Chinese and Russian planes since the Cold War, as I understand it. We also had the Office of Naval Intelligence print this report, first time they've done it since 2009, talking about a compelling concern about Chinese activity in the disputed waters off the East and South China Sea. I also concur with your comment on sequestration as it relates to national defense, although I really question anyone on this committee or the administration that would suggest that we shouldn't remove defense sequestration unless we can also give the EPA, the IRS, and the GSA all the money they want, or unless we can quench the thirst of every other agency that drinks from every federal trough. To hold defense sequestration hostage against that, unconscionable. My concern today, as we talk about it, Admiral Locklear, in this committee, we talk about the high-end technological superiority, but I'm also concerned about what we're seeing happen at the lower end. You mentioned, I think correctly, China launched more naval ships than any other country in 2013 and 14, and they expect the same for 2014 and 2015. But I'm also concerned about what they're doing with their Coast Guard. Have 95 large cutters, 110 small cutters. That's a total of 205. That's 68 ships less than the entire U.S. Navy. And they have more ships in their Coast Guard than Japan, Vietnam, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Singapore have combined. We don't always rate those as naval ships, but you've seen this picture, I'm sure. This picture is of a Chinese Coast Guard vessel. They have labeled on here tugboat number 25. It's painted white. This is one of their amphibious naval ships. It's number 908. It's painted gray. Other than being painted gray and the number on there, there's virtually no difference, I don't think, between these two ships. And that's something that's really concerning me because we don't always measure those. So my question for you today is not the high-end technological superiority, but when we're seeing Iranians in Yemen, we're seeing Russians in the Ukraine, we're seeing Chinese on the Senkakus and the artificial islands are building up, what strategies, concepts, forces, and capabilities do you think we need to counter this kind of gray zone aggression we're seeing in Asia?
Well, thank you, sir. The two pictures you showed, I think, were accurate the way I understand it. The Chinese are engaging in a comprehensive military modernization program that wants to transform not only the PLA into a high-end kind of network-centric military capable of large-scale operations, so we talked about that, but they're also working on the lower end to ensure that they have a maritime security force, which we would equate to a Coast Guard or a fisheries patrol, that by numbers, if you add up all their numbers and everybody else's in Asia's in that category, they exceed everybody else's put together. And I think that they went down that path after they saw what was happening in the Senkakus. They took some of the gray hulls, and we observed them shift those over to be what they would call non-combatants or maritime patrol ships by maybe just changing the color of them. They show no slowdown in the pace of their military modernization, particularly in their Navy, even though their economy has dropped a little bit. They're still on about a 10% increase in 2014. 2015 will be a little bit more. And that's the 5th straight year we've seen them do double-digit increases. Of course, their military is, on the high end, prepares for issues around Taiwan and their what they would call their near seas. Their maritime security are put in a position to be able to gain influence, particularly in the South China Sea and in the East China Sea, to further what they consider their national interest there. Now, they doing this in combination with what we have seen to be a fairly massive land reclamation in the Spratly Islands and in upgrades to facilities in the Parasail Islands, which are the two regions in the South China Sea. Now, the implications of that for us are that it provides the ability for them to deploy more of these lower-end ships down there, provides the ability to base them down there, to resupply them. It allows them to exert basically greater influence over what's now a contested area. It expanded land features down there also could eventually lead to the deployment of things such as long-range radars, military, and advanced missile systems, and it might be a platform for them to, if they were ever wanted to establish an air defense, an ADIZ, an air defense zone down there, for them to be able to enforce that from. Up to this point in time, the nations around them, the Southeast Asian claimants, have really had little success in formulating an effective response to the PRC actions down there. None of their efforts have slowed the PRC in the South China Sea, and they recognize that, that stopping the PRC will require a change in the strategic environment down there. So what the types of things that we need to do down there? Well, first, the forces, we stay forward. We need to have the types of intelligence and search ISR assets that allow us to maintain our knowledge of what's going on. These are globally stressed because of the things that we're doing in Afghanistan and in Iraq and in Yemen, and many of those assets are similar in type to the ones we would use in that arena. So we need to ensure that we can sense and see what's going on, because it allows me to optimally use the forces that we have.
Admiral, my time has expired, but would you mind submitting that to us for the record? It's important that we have it as a committee, and I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I yield